Wednesday, everybody, with Jay Coker. I'm Mick Gillispie, talking Alabama. And Alabama football right now as the Crimson Tide take one step closer to Western Kentucky, playing Western Kentucky in the opener of the season and kind of just getting closer and closer to making that initial kickoff with Kalen DeBoer, and it is great to have all of you guys with us. So make sure you like and subscribe, throw us a thumbs up, and let's get this show started. Don't forget, we're brought to you by the friends at MyBookie, part of Disrupt the Media. All right, there he is, Jake Coker. I'm Mick Gillispie. All right, dude, let's get into some, the second scrimmage, right? And apparently there's only 2 scrimmages, which I guess I would think that you would scrimmage a lot more than that. But I don't understand how this all works. So I figured I'd ask you, a person that has been there and done that. I mean, is 2 scrimmages enough to get ready?
I don't think you get a ton out of the scrimmages, to be honest with you. I think, you're not getting reps. Scrimmages aren't like games, okay? I mean, it's not like you have a full stadium. You got guys rotating in and out. You're not getting a ton of reps. It's good to get some game type scenarios in there. But I always enjoyed or thought practice type scenarios were better just because, you're focused on the situation. You had multiple reps to perfect that situational awareness. And those scrimmages, I just didn't feel like it didn't feel like a real game, and then, if you screw it up or you do well, I mean, you don't get to just run it back and do it over again and see what happens if the defense does this or that.
Right.
I think
so. Learning wise is what you're saying. It's easier to learn in practice.
I think so. I mean, you get more reps in it. There's more continuity to those reps. And you get to see different looks more than once in practice. So I felt like I got more out of practice reps than I did, in a scrimmage. Mainly, again, you're getting more reps. You're not getting, moving guys in and out. You're practicing on one field, scrimmaging on one field.
Yeah.
So, you get probably 15, 20 throw attempts in a scrimmage, whereas you throw a ball probably, 150 times in practice.
Yeah.
So, scrimmages I think it's a good measuring stick, but in terms of getting better, I don't think it equates to practice type scenarios.
Yeah. Okay. So when you're out there, let's talk about Alabama's scrimmage. Kalen DeBoer, after the scrimmage on Saturday, was really happy with the way that the cornerbacks performed, right? So you got Damani Jackson on one side of the field. He's the guy that transferred from USC. Mm-hmm. Jaleel Hurley's the only guy that's left from last year and that mass exodus that happened in that particular group, which still it's puzzling to me how all of those guys would have left Alabama knowing that they would have been starting this year. And I still just feel like there was some incentives from some of those coaches that were going other places to maybe, hey, you know what, we're just going to try to bring as many of those guys with us as we can. Or maybe just one particular guy that ended up at Ohio State. Who knows? Maybe we'll talk about that in more depth later. But the bottom line is this, is you got Damani Jackson, who's a former 5-star, was at USC, and apparently he's having a great camp. And he's going to, I think he's got one side locked down. Jaleel Hurley, we don't hear much about him. Like, he hasn't really stepped up yet. Xavier Brown's a 5-star freshman who's done really well. He's had a hand injury. And then Deshaun Jones is the guy that transferred in from Wake Forest, who's been kind of on the other side of the field. And then, of course, Jalen Mbakwe is someone that I've heard nothing but great things about, star from Clay Chalkville. But DeBoer said, hey, these guys were on top of the receivers all day. You've been a quarterback in these practices. Can you read into anything when it comes to that?
Well, the first thing, it's hard to stick out at Alabama. Okay. I mean, when we were practicing at Alabama, practices against the first team defense were harder than any other game we played in. That was the best defense in the country. You had the best players in the country on the defensive side of the ball. So, I mean, the guy that sticks out at Alabama is going to be a first-round draft pick. you know, the guy that nobody talks about is probably going to be a mid round draft pick.
Right.
So I mean, again, it's hard to stick out unless you're truly elite on an Alabama practice field. Look, I know we had a lot of guys leave, but we also, I mean, you just named off the guys that came in. Those guys are no joke either.
Right.
So the guys that aren't talked about too much, I mean, they're still going to be substantial players, and they're going to be able to hang in there. Again, it's just all going to come down to just confidence, playing with each other over a period of time. But from what I'm hearing, that offense is looking unbelievable. And I've also heard Ryan Williams, a guy that we've talked about a lot, you know, hoping he could turn the corner quick and you know, adjust to the game in college pretty quickly as a 17-year-old, would be able to do so pretty quickly. Sounds to me like he's becoming a playmaker already within 3 weeks of putting the Alabama helmet on.
That's crazy. I've heard the same thing too. And I just want to temper those expectations because I know he's supposed to be a senior at Saraland High School, but he was Mr. Football in this state
2 years in a row.
Yeah, as a sophomore and a junior.
Yeah.
And so he forewent, or whatever you call that, foregoed his senior year to go to Alabama. And I don't blame him for that. He's been such an interesting guy. I mean, he's someone that we need to have on this show. You know what I mean? I mean, we've like fallen in love with this guy.
Oh yeah.
I mean, if he hangs out with Roll Tide Willie, I mean, do you think he'd hang out with Jake Coker?
You know, Denzel invited Ryan Anderson and myself to dinner with him one night, and I was like, Denzel, I'd love to go, but I'm not sure he'll come to Alabama if we get at that dinner. I may scare him away.
You're not the best recruiter.
Yeah, ask Shank. Shank left me.
Yeah. The good news though is that I've recruited my nephew's coming to Alabama now. Robbie Michael. I cannot wait, dude. I'm so excited. He's like going to go through Rush. He wants to do this and that. He's just got the school.
He doesn't know how much fun he's going to have
today. Yeah. And I told you, gave him the talk. Like, don't ask me if you don't want to ask me.
Is he going to follow the same footsteps?
I don't know.
In Tuscaloosa.
I mean,
talk to old Nick.
Put him over there. I think he's going to come hang out with us on the Bama Tailgate show on Fridays when we're at Innisfree. I mean, I told him, like, don't take classes.
A freshman
yeah, but he can come. They don't, you don't have to be 21 until 6 o'clock. So
yeah,
we'll be there from 1 to 3. So yeah, I'm excited, man. I mean, like, I honestly, like, I didn't want my expectations let down because he had scholarships everywhere. I mean, he got a full ride. So he could have gone, he said, to Texas. He was looking at schools in Florida. He was looking at North Carolina. And I'm like, well, you know, now he's like, hey, I'm here. I just went through orientation. I'm getting ready.
What do you say about Alabama in comparison to other schools?
I don't know. I didn't even ask.
Didn't matter.
It didn't matter to me. And he's there now. So the opposite.
We're not worried about the opposition.
No. We got to get you recruiting like that.
Yeah.
You just worry about the thing with you is that you don't want to tell somebody what they want to hear. You want to tell them.
I'm just not going to sugarcoat it.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
It's kind of like if you don't come here, somebody else just as good is, and we're going to win a national championship
without you anyway, which I think for good players, like I honestly, like, I think that matters too. I mean, I kind of feel like in the real world, I mean, sometimes you want to hear that. You know, if you're the best of the best, and I feel like there's a couple of things that I do that I'm pretty good at. I don't really care who I work with on a baseball play-by-play game because I'm as good as anybody. I feel like in my mind, you know, so I can go out there. Like, you may have a different style. People might know you more, but we're going to have a good time. It's going to be good. I'm sure what football players are probably the same way.
Yeah. Well, I think so, within reason, for sure. But, you know, again, back then at Alabama, I think after my senior year, Coach Saban won 4 out of the last 7 national championships. So, and
that was pretty awesome.
And the ball
was there for a lot of those.
Yeah, the ball wasn't about to stop rolling.
Oh, wait a second, all of those. I was there for all of them. Great.
But, you know, I mean, in my mind, you hear that, and it's like, man, that's kind of hard to.
Oh, look,
that's hard to argue.
if it wasn't for Joey Freshwater, we would have won another one too. I mean, like, not to get on that today, but like that 2016 team was awesome.
Yeah.
Absolutely awesome. But when your offensive coordinator isn't there, it is what it is.
It'd be a little tough.
Yeah, it could be, right? Hey, here's your new job. Oh, by the way, we're playing Clemson. Yeah.
You got a week to prepare, by the way.
Yeah,
of course
yeah.
He'd been there all year, but I mean,
yeah, but it's different though, man.
Yeah.
It's different. But all right, so I got a couple questions for you. All right, this is like me trying to, like, in my mind, go through what it's like right now. I talked about the cornerback battle, and DeBoer said those guys did really well. I bet it'll be at the start of the season, unless somebody gets hurt, it'll be Jackson and Jones. I mean, just because they have experience.
Yeah.
And then you'll start mixing in the Mbakwe's and the Browns and the Mincy's. You'll get those 5-star guys in, and then eventually those 5-star guys will be on the field a lot.
Oh yeah,
because they're super talented.
Playing multiple positions.
Right. Do whatever. Yeah, right. I mean, they'll be out there. The other one is the offensive line, the right tackle spot, Wilkin Formby and Eliza Pritchard, and those guys are both. I mean, I feel like that's another spot where even if you don't win, it doesn't mean that you're not playing. It just means that the first game of the season that you're not the starter. Now, what I wanted to put up here is on this question here, and you tell me what you think. How do players deal with the depth chart? Because Nick Saban didn't want to talk about it, and you played for Nick Saban. When the depth chart question was asked, he would lose his crap. I mean, he'd get mad, like, and then he'd be yelling, and he's yelling at the players, and he's talking about this and that, and he's worried about the parents and all this stuff, right? Like, we don't do a depth chart here,
Yeah.
And then I'm hearing from my people, like, don't ask Coach DeBoer about a depth chart. He's probably not going to yell at you, but you're not getting it.
Yeah.
So how do you, as a guy who played a position that you were in some battles for I mean, the most memorable one, 2014 and 15, you're battling for the starting quarterback job. Forget about how it turned out. What was the experience like for you as a person when you go through that? And I'll grab you a coldie while you're answering.
I mean, it's a lot more. It's a lot more fun to be the starter than being a quarterback battle. I can promise you that. The difference, I guess, and I guess the best. I felt like at Florida State, when Jimbo named the starter, that was the starter, and he had committed to it, and everybody knew. I mean, you'd have to really blow it to get benched at Florida State. But at Alabama, until you proved it, you had to prove it throughout the year, or at least until it was obvious and the whole team knew who the starter was to actually be the starter. Like, it was more so you had to prove it on the field than prove it to the head coach. If
really?
That makes any sense. And
kind of like we saw with Milroe last year.
Oh, yeah, that's exactly what it was. I mean, it was almost like, it's going to have to be, there's going to be no doubt until we make that decision and make that call as to who the starter is for the rest of the year. And after that game, after that South Florida game, it was pretty obvious who the guy needed to be.
But what's better?
What's better?
I mean, as a player, as a person, forget about like as a coach, but as a guy that went through this mentally, what's easier to deal with? Because you guys can go on Cover Crimson right now.
It's far easier to be the starter going into the year. I mean,
right.
And throughout the off season, because when you have 7-on-7s, when you have workouts, I mean, when it's known who the starter is, I mean, your command of everything, there's a whole lot more respect for, as simple things as changing a protection, calling an audible. You're not second guessing yourself, making sure you're right. I mean, what you say is concrete. It's set in stone. People move on. Everybody trusts you're the guy. That's what you're supposed to be doing. Or when you make a mistake, I mean, all right, it's on to the next one. But when you're not the starter and you're making, you make a mistake or the wrong call, or people are like, I don't know, we'll see. Well, maybe the next guy needs to be in there.
Right.
And of course, if you make enough mistakes and throw enough interceptions or whatever, I mean, people are going to say that anyway. But when it's close, or you've been playing there a couple of years and you proved yourself, you're given that leeway to make mistakes and power through them, figure your own way out of that issue.
So Milroe last year, you guys know the story, right? And I'm going to tell you what the story that I was kind of told. Okay. Because we did the show at the beginning of the year, we always kind of felt like it was probably Milroe.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we were like, well, if it's not Milroe and somebody else comes in, I mean, obviously he didn't look great against Texas, right? He looked like he was like a deer in the headlights. The first game they killed it. The second game, right? And the third game, he was benched. And then all of a sudden we found out he was suspended. And maybe he didn't take the benching as well as he did the game, because when he came out there for the game, there was a different guy and not a guy that had a tough time dealing with it. He was a guy that was a great teammate and a leader. And then from that point on, it's been his team. Now, the players, from what I understand, respected what he brought to the table, because I heard from my sources that the guy has been a workhorse, and you know this, long before he was the starting quarterback. I mean, this incredible work ethic where he was there first in the morning every day, working out, doing all the things that he had to do, and really won the respect of the team. And then we saw in the in the game against South Florida he's the best option. And then from that point on, the next week, it was obvious he was the right guy. And then he talked to, the interview with LT, he's talking about dealing with the mental aspect of it. You guys can check that out at Cover Crimson, covercrimson.com. We posted it on there. And also don't forget that sign up right now. Make sure that you're a subscriber to the channel, but also make sure that you take advantage of the deal right now where you can be part of covercrimson.com for $1. You can check it out for $1. But anyway, LT talked to him. LT's kind of made it clear, and he's been honest about dealing with, some mental health stuff himself. And it sounds like that Milroe dealt with that battling for the quarterback spot. And I can imagine, as someone that went through this, that's got to be really difficult mentally to go through that. I mean, to win that job.
Yeah, well, we talk about I'm not discounting mental health issues, but it's definitely tough. But at the same time,
that wasn't your deal.
You're playing at Alabama. It's a privilege there to play there, and you got to appreciate that. And at the end of the day, when you're in college, and that's the biggest thing in your life, you've been working your whole life for, 18, 20 years. You can't see past that.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, it is extremely important. And I think, if I don't start at Alabama, my life looks a lot different now than it would, it would look a lot different if I wasn't the starter. We wouldn't be doing this podcast,
Might be a different podcast.
Yeah, it wouldn't be. Yeah.
What kind of podcast would we be doing? Like insurance?
Probably wouldn't be insurance.
What would you be doing?
I'd be like what Blake Bortles say. He'd be working construction, ripping cigs.
A guy would have just pulled you in off the crew that took all the trees down around the studio. How'd it go out there, buddy? You guys did a good job.
Look, when you're going through all that, it's very tough, and
there's a part of you though that kind of like that challenge. There came a point with you where he might have, he kind of did it his way. You got pissed off.
Yeah, and that's the best way that I get through it. Because I get, I just feel like I get. Again, we talked about this with Ryan, where you don't care about the outcome anymore. You just go in and you work hard and see what happens.
Yeah,
and you don't care.
I'm gonna do what I got to do.
You don't.
I'm gonna kick. everybody here, and then they're going to know. And then when I get in there, I'm going to run over the guy from Texas A&M.
You don't care if you piss people off while you're doing it.
Yeah.
Coaches, players, whatever, you do it the best way you know how.
You would have loved playing baseball for Jim Wells.
Yeah, I mean, whereas I think, definitely times in my career where I worried a little too much about, how I did things and how other people would react to me doing certain things. And, again, once you get to that place where your sole focus is performing the best you can, still being a team player, but performing the best you can and doing what you think you have to do to be the best, despite whatever anybody else says, takes you a lot further than sitting there worrying about what other people have to say or what people, tell you need to be doing. Cause you know what it takes at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
Now don't get me wrong. If I was going through that, I mean, I had, family to lean on and talk to and all that. And, I mean, I handled it my own way, but, and again, it was tough, but, I look at things a lot differently now. And if I didn't put as much weight into playing quarterback at Alabama at the time, I probably would have played a little bit better,
right.
Just going out
the
there.
Pressure you put on yourself.
Yeah. Just not thinking about, this is Alabama. This is my dream. What's going to happen if I don't win a national championship? But then again, I say that in the national championship game, I'm sitting there saying, if you don't play better, you're going to be the first one to lose for Coach Saban. I mean, that thought goes through my head, and then I just said, screw it, and went out there and just threw the ball around and see what happened after that drive where I threw it over Calvin's head.
Still one of my favorite games, man. Still one of my favorite games. Because I missed the Georgia game where Amari Cooper caught that touchdown because I was doing the basketball with Brian Passink.
Oh, yeah.
And I told you, and I remember coming down out of the clouds in the plane and being like, man, I missed that.
Yeah.
He's like, I think we're winning. We got the ball. They got the ball. They're taking it down the field. He hates Georgia because he's from Georgia.
Yeah.
And then we won. I'm like, I missed it. I felt like I missed the party. That was my party of those games. And then I told you the other thing, part of this too. Don't ever sit next to Baron Huber and Mike Johnson because they have very big hands. And when you're scoring like that, they're pounding on you.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Well, I guess whatever it takes you to get into a positive behavior while also feeling bulletproof, and you can just in the most polite, just destroy everybody around you. I mean, in a physical way, just again, where you feel bulletproof and also be a good teammate, whatever it takes to get there,
Yeah, it's what you got to do.
Like Brian Dawkins, you hear Takeo Spikes tell that story about Brian Dawkins, saying he wants to bless somebody or, whatever. And he goes and hits somebody and he goes, thank you, Jesus. The guy's like unconscious on the sideline.
Yeah, Chuck, my buddy Jake, my same name my son after, used to have a Philly cheesesteak place right across from the gas station on the strip. And it was called Fat Phillies. And he had these T-shirts he made up. He's a huge football guy. He loved football. He played, he was like a walk-on at Alabama and like played in the Arena League, and he had these shirts and they had Chuck Bednarik knocking out Frank Gifford and it said, get some. like this, that, you know what I'm talking about? Like the guy's like leaning over. And I always thought, like, I don't know that anybody's buying cheesesteaks off of these T-shirts, but just like a certain level of meatheadness that loves this. Get some. All right, last question on today's episode of Elephant in the Room. And this could be a quick one, but what is the best advice you got as a backup quarterback? I think it leans into Ty Simpson. While you're thinking about it, Ty Simpson talked about staying at Alabama. And the fact that he's okay waiting his turn. And I'm sure you're hearing the same thing.
Yeah.
It's starting to come together for him. What I heard was that the speed of the game was a little bit too fast for him at the beginning. We kind of saw that last year when he played in game 2, and that's all changed. He had a really good A-Day. He's had a great, fall camp or preseason camp or whatever. And I feel like he's the heir apparent to Jalen Milroe at quarterback. And I think that by the time that comes, he's the ultimate coach's son. His dad was a football coach in college. I think that he's going to be super ready for the experience, like yourself, to lead Alabama to a championship.
I don't know if there's ever any good advice I got, because it's always for him, it's a little different. He's younger than Jalen. He's going to get his turn. I mean, he's going to be the starter at Alabama next year. So, I mean, I think he's in a really, really good spot. I mean, the best I ever was mindset-wise as a backup was at Florida State. I mean, even though I hated not being the starter, I got to a place where I was able to focus on myself. Every rep I took was all out, 100%, focused on every play, and somehow I was able to separate myself from there's even a competition going on.
Mm-hmm.
If you can kind of remove yourself from even thinking about a competition and just playing football one rep at a time, and I know it's so
cliche, right?
The process, I mean, that was before I even realized what the process was or heard Coach Saban talk about it. You go out there and just play every rep full speed and focus on literally the details of every single play every time. When you get that call, you know exactly what you're looking for.
That's right.
Where to go with the ball if this happens, know how to, change the protection. If it's, if it's a great ball, touchdown, great. If it's an incompletion, move on. But somehow just block out all the noise of even being a backup or that there's even a QB competition going on. And you watch, I've seen some of these highlights of these scrimmages, and Ty looks like he is making great decisions, getting the ball out quick. Skill set's a lot different than Jalen's.
More like you. I mean, more like that style, like strong arm quarterback, kind of not going to be as mobile, probably a lot better on the short range balls, but can throw the deep balls as well. I think with Milroe throws bombs and can run really run like a deer.
All right. Thanks, Mick. Appreciate that. Yeah.
You ran some, but I mean, you know what I'm saying? You're more like a power runner. I don't know that you could have ran through LSU like Milroe did last year. I mean, I could be wrong, but
I mean, I don't think I'm accelerating.
He looked like Derrick Henry. You're the guy you handed the ball to. You remember that?
I didn't know this was a fucking roast.
Well, I didn't say you were slow. They're like, these guys giggle too much. I'll mute myself.
Okay. So what was the question there?
No, I'm just saying, like, I like Ty. I think you and Ty have a similar skill set. I think he's going to be a great quarterback. Wasn't the shot at you.
Yeah, no, Ty's a good athlete. I think
we'll see what he can do at the mullet toss next year.
Yeah, he's not going to be able to throw a fish like me.
All right, guys, that does it.
I'm going to treat him like Jalen. Send him on back to Tuscaloosa.
Oh, we both crushed Jalen.
With slimy hands and all.
Crushed him. He didn't get his shoes dirty, though.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Hey, guys, we're brought to you by MyBookie. We've all been there before. A weekend trip to the casino canceled because real life came calling. MyBookie's new and improved online casino is here to change the game. Dive into a truly realistic casino experience featuring the latest in slots, progressive jackpots, and live dealer action, all from the comfort of your own home. The MyBookie Casino provides a Las Vegas experience when the action is in your own hands and you don't even have to wear pants. Start at MyBookie today with a generous sign-up bonus using the promo code NEXTROUND, and a revamped loyalty program ensures a host of exclusive VIP perks. The more you play, the more you win, only with MyBookie. As we wrap it up, we're going to try to get the guy that's probably the most popular member of this team in studio next time, and Ryan Anderson.
Yep.
He just outshines us. I'm reading the comments, and everybody's like, I love it when Ryan's in there. I think that's a shot at both of us. But he's funny.
Well, hey, there's power in not giving a shit.
He's had a pretty good run.
Yeah, he has.
Yeah,
he has.
he's so funny. That was last time with him was fantastic. So we'll do that again, guys.
Everybody needs a friend like Ryan. Everybody needs a friend like Ryan. I mean, you just don't. You can't beat it. If people only knew.
Yep.
You see. I mean, what you see is what you get. You see it on the podcast.
You guys don't even know though when the good stuff happens. Hey, thanks for hanging out. Make sure that you guys are a part of Cover Crimson. Subscribe, give us a thumbs up, get in the comments section. Tell us what you think about the channel. We had a fun time yesterday with the live show, and we appreciate you guys hanging out with us again. And don't forget, Cover Crimson right now. You can sign up for $1 to the website. You talk about the message board. We got a lot of fun content coming, so check that out as well. And roll Tide.